What's up everyone and welcome back to my Echoes of Time channel. Before we begin, please hit the subscribe button. Today let's get started. 12 unknown facts about the real Bloody Mary. Mary I, who was regarded as England's first reigning queen, was not particularly well liked. She developed violent initiatives against Protestants and those she considered heretics as part of her mission to restore Roman Catholicism. As a result, she was dubbed Bloody Mary. Furthermore, Mary Tudor was a remarkable person who accomplished a lot of exciting things throughout her lifetime, even though most people only remember her murdering Protestants. Did you know that during her early years, the future Mary I of England came dangerously close to marrying many different princes? Or that Elizabeth I, her younger half-sister, succeeded her and had a number of issues with Mary, Queen of Scots, their first cousin once removed? Learn fascinating facts about Mary I of England by reading on. The legend of a bloody ghost was inspired by her. There are several significant connections between the ghost of Bloody Mary and her namesake monarch. The ghost appears in mirrors, covered in blood, screaming, and clutching a dead baby. Mary I wanted to have a child but had trouble getting pregnant. She even experienced what is known as a false pregnancy. Following these incidents, she experienced Great Depression and yearned to have a child for her husband and nation. She was her biological parents' only surviving child. After the brutal, protracted Wars of the Roses, Henry VII ended the Tudor dynasty and left behind a united nation for his son, Henry VIII. Henry married Catherine of Aragon, the daughter of the first kings of a unified Spain, his brother's widow, hoping to bear a son to avoid future dynastic strife, but they had some issues. Despite Catherine's repeated pregnancies, she only had one surviving child, the future Queen Mary. Although the entire kingdom rejoiced when she gave birth to a living boy, named Prince Henry after his father, the baby unfortunately passed away at the age of just a few months. So a young princess was responsible for the stability and destiny of an entire dynasty. Mary was an exceptionally intelligent child. For her age group, Mary was exceptionally intelligent. By the age of 7, she was able to perform for her cousin-betrothed's envoy by dancing and playing the virginals, a precursor to a keyboard/harp. She was able to compose a complete letter in Latin by the age of 9. She translated the Latin prayer Concede Mihi, composed by Thomas Aquinas, into English when she was 11 or 12 years old. In her early years, Mary was engaged to numerous princes. During her childhood, Mary was engaged to numerous princes in a string of broken and reformed partnerships, as was typical of medieval and Renaissance royals. When she was young, her father made a large show of siding with France, England's long-standing foe. Mary was engaged to the Dauphin, the eldest son of King Francis. Even though Mary was only 4 years old at the time, the Queen of France continued to communicate with her, bringing her presents and money. The Anglo-French Union was dissolved the following year, and Mary was re-engaged to Holy Roman Emperor Charles V, her mother's nephew and the monarch of Spain. He was 25 at the time, and she was 5. They exchanged eerie love letters, but Charles ended the alliance by getting married to a different cousin who was more suitable for his age. In the end, Henry re-established his relationship with the French by pledging Mary's hand in marriage to either his second son or King Francis, her former prospective father-in-law. Anne Boleyn was never recognized by Mary as her stepmother. Henry married Anne Boleyn right away after divorcing Catherine of Aragon, partly for not bearing him a male heir. The new queen hated her new stepdaughter since Mary's very presence threatened the inheritance of any children and could have with Henry. Since King Henry had dissolved his marriage to Catherine, she even went so far as to call Mary a bastard. Mary also despised and, thus the enmity was reciprocal. Mary lost her royal prerogative when Anne deposed and disgraced her mother, Catherine. Mary consequently denied Anne's status as her father's wife, her own devaluation, and the illegitimacy of her parents' union. She was made into her half-sister's servant. Queen Anne Boleyn was obviously angry at Mary, whom she already hated, because she, too, was unable to bear Henry a son. Being a bastard, Anne insulted Mary by referring to her as the Lady Mary. She even hired the former princess as a babysitter for Elizabeth. In the event that Mary refused to recognize Elizabeth and insisted on referring to herself as princess, Elizabeth's governess was to box her ears and slap Mary like the cursed bastard that she was. Mary became England's first sovereign queen. Although Henry's will specified his sister's heirs, also called Mary, to inherit in the event that Edward VI died childless, Mary was genetically the next in line after the death of her younger half-brother. Since Mary was Henry's eldest biological child and many people had good recollections of her mother, she still had sympathizers. In order to oppose her cousin Jane Grey, a granddaughter of Henry's sister, who was crowned queen by Edward on his deathbed, she organized troops around her and marched on London. Mary rushed to take the throne in August of 1553, thus Jane Grey never saw a coronation and barely enjoyed 9 days as the declared queen. Since Jane Grey was never crowned, historians do not see her as a real ruler. Mary was so crowned in October of 1553, making her the first queen regnant of England. She burned hundreds of people and reinstated heresy laws. Mary's family was deeply religious. Her mother, Catherine, was renowned for her piety, and her maternal grandmother was Isabella the Catholic of Castile. Mary, who was brought up to be deeply devout even after her father broke with the Pope to found the Anglican Church, was no exception. Ironically, Henry was formerly a devout Catholic who defended the Pope and wrote a refutation of Martin Luther's theses. Mary persecuted anyone she considered heretics, primarily Protestants, after ascending to the throne. She reinstated England's anti-heresy laws in 1555 to punish anybody who did not follow Catholic teaching. During her reign, she sentenced scores to death in prison, forced even more to escape England, and burned about 300 at the stake, including the Archbishop of Canterbury. She eventually wed her ex-fiancé's son, her first cousin once removed. Mary took the throne at the age of 37, which was much past the typical age for marriage or childbirth in her era. However, she was adamant about giving her nation a Catholic heir, partly to prevent her disobedient little half-sister, Elizabeth, from succeeding her as queen. Mary consequently took a husband right away. Her preferred groom, the future King Philip II of Spain, a devout Catholic prince 11 years her junior and the son of her former fiancé, Charles V, was her first cousin once removed. Many Englishmen didn't like having a foreign, Catholic royal as their king, therefore this wasn't popular with them. Philip was said to be illiterate and already engaged to another person. He had previously been married, but he relinquished both in order to marry a queen regnant, even if he wasn't pleased about it. They got married in July of 1554. Mary believed she was expecting a child. Mary started to believe she was expecting a kid a few months after she married Philip. It makes sense that while some were concerned, many were thrilled at the prospect of a Catholic heir. According to Mary, the pregnancy progressed as she felt the fetus move inside her. For the royal heir, she even had a lavish nursery prepared. As word got out that she had delivered a prince safely, Mary began receiving congratulations. But there was never a baby. She apparently experienced pregnancy, or pseudo-ciesis. Due to a number of indicators, including the fact that her menstruation had stopped, Mary thought she was pregnant, but she was horribly mistaken. She ordered further killings after the baby failed to show up, claiming that God would not permit her son to be born until the Protestants were put down. Mary eventually had to come out of captivity, humiliated. A few years later, she too thought she was pregnant, but it was a false positive. What took place? Mary may have had ovarian tumors or cysts, or she may have been experiencing menopause and mistaken the symptoms for pregnancy. England lost its final French territory, the port city of Calais, during Mary's reign. During Mary's reign, England lost its final French territory, the port city of Calais. The English kings had possessed territories in France ever since William, Duke of Normandy, overran England in 1066. The so-called Angevin Empire peaked under Henry II, but during the reign of Henry's son John and the centuries that followed, England's authority over its French territories waned. Before losing the 100 Years' War, England regained a sizable chunk of France. The significant port city of Calais was England's only remaining possession in France by the time Mary ascended the Queen. Calais castle and garrison deteriorated under Henry VIII, and the city vanished completely under Mary. Philip, Mary's husband, lost a war against the French in 1558 over Calais. "When I am dead and opened, you shall find Calais engraved on my heart," Mary reportedly exclaimed in shock. Following her death, Mary's husband courted her younger sister. On November 17, 1558, Mary passed away, possibly from uterine cancer. She gave her reign to her younger, Protestant half-sister, Elizabeth, despite her greatest efforts to conceive a biological heir for England and restore Catholicism to her nation. And her widower, Philip II, made the decision to propose to Elizabeth on the proviso that she convert to Catholicism and allow him to leave England. Elizabeth, of course, didn't pursue it.